After following push-pull legs for a solid 3 years, I finally decided to switch things up. Honestly, I was just so tired of feeling drained all the time and feeling like I was spending my entire life at the gym but still making no progress. I've recently switched over to a lower upper split with a bit of a twist. It's a 10-day rotation that puts more focus on recovery, doing less but getting more out of each workout, and balancing training with the rest of my life. And surprisingly, I am seeing way better results. This split has helped me lift heavier, get bigger, feel better, and also be excited about training again. So if you feel like your current program isn't working anymore, or you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, then this is the video for you.
Always take it. Always take it. My life has changed completely and for the better a million times over. God, I don't even know where I would be if we never met.
They say size doesn't matter, but they don't know how it feels to have quads smaller than your boyfriend. So first up this week, we'll be hitting quads hard. I like to start all my leg days with calves because I find them the hardest to grow, and putting an exercise at the start of your workout is the best way to give it as much energy as possible to hopefully force some growth. One tip for calves that has literally changed the game for me is not doing a full range of motion, which may sound crazy, but when you go right onto your tippy toes, the load typically comes off your calves. And I read a study before that showed people doing these partial ranges of motion, or primarily doing calf raises in the initial range of motion instead of in a full range of motion, showed more growth for both the inner and outer part of the calf. So I just come up onto the balls of my feet and then lower the weight back down again. After doing 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of those, I'll go into my first quad exercise of the day, which is squats. Now, you do not need to do back squats to grow your quads. You just need to include some kind of squat pattern movement into your routine. This could be anything from hack squatting, Smith machine squats, lunges, or Bulgarian split squats. Anything that tickles your fancy. In today's video, you're probably going to notice that I stick to lower rep ranges, usually keeping my reps below 10. The reason for this is simple. I want every rep to be as stimulating as possible right from the start. With higher reps, like 15 or more, the first 1 to 5 reps often feel too easy and the last reps really push you. Based on research I've read, as long as you're hitting somewhere between 6 to 20 reps, the exact number doesn't matter as much as how close you are to failure. I find it easier to gauge failure within 6 to 8 rep ranges rather than doing sets of 20 plus reps. But if I notice that my form or joints are limiting factors at that rep range, I'll lighten the weight slightly and aim for 8 to 10 reps to keep the movement effective and safe. After 2 sets of squats, I'm then going to move into a unilateral exercise, the Bulgarian split squat. Now, before you throw up, we are doing it on the Smith machine, which is relatively more manageable after the squats.
And in my life since then, like I always look at these opportunities of things that I don't want to do as like, what is it worth these moments of awkwardness, of uncertainty, of discomfort for the potential that it holds.
Before I start my working sets, I'll just do a few reps on each leg to get used to the movement and find my perfect foot position. And then I'll go into 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these. Keeping your torso more upright will also make sure you're biasing the quads over your glutes here. As you can see, I like to keep my stance pretty close. About 2 to 4 steps away from your foot rest is a good place to start when determining your own foot position. But for me, closer allows me to load my quads more without my hamstrings or glutes taking over. And then to finish off our quads, we have the leg extension, which is to bias our rectus femoris, the one middle quad muscle that usually gets neglected in other quad exercises. I like to lean the machine back as much as possible on this one, again, to load the quads as much as I can, and also strap myself in to make sure my butt doesn't come off the seat or I don't slip around. I only do 3 main quad exercises on my leg day, but as you can tell, I try and make sure I'm getting the most out of each exercise when I do it. Little tricks like foot placement or setting the seat back will allow you to get more out of the exercise, so we may not be doing a lot of volume, but all the volume we're doing is doing as much as possible for growth. I'll do 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps of these before going into my hamstring exercise of the workout, which is the lying leg curl. I only do 2 sets of these because I'm usually pretty beat by this point and I want to push the intensity of this movement as much as possible over doing too much volume that I don't really have the energy for. And at last, I gaslight myself into doing some adduction work. Your adductors are going to give you that thicker quad look on the inside of your thigh, so although they get hit in other exercises, I like to do a couple sets just to make sure they're getting some love during my quad workout. I'll do 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps of these, and then we're done. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow for my first upper workout of the week. I literally used to be a serial chest day skipper, but then I realized I was living in a shell of my former life, so I added it back into my routine. Chest day may seem pointless for us girlies, especially for those of you with some serious back breakers, but training chest, especially the upper chest, can make your girls look more perky and lift them slightly. So I would definitely recommend keeping some sort of incline pressing movement at least in your routine. And to start off the workout today, we're doing just that on the Smith machine. Again, you could do this with a barbell or with dumbbells, but the Smith machine is my one true love when it comes to increasing stability, so we're doing it on her today. I start out with 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps on this before moving into my shoulder exercises of the workout. I like to start with the incline press over going right into shoulders because it helps to warm up the shoulders a bit before moving into my main shoulder movements. Speaking of which, our first delt exercise of the day is the seated shoulder press. These are great for hitting our front delts as well as targeting the side delts a bit too. I know people say you don't need to train front delts because they get hit in other movements, blah blah blah. I want mine to be extra large and in charge, so I like doing some direct front delt work. I do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these, really focusing on slowing down the lowering portion of the movement and then exploding back up again. After finishing up on those, I will then move on to some side delt work with the dumbbell side lateral raises. I like to do mine with dumbbells, but you can also set these up on a cable machine if you prefer. The main thing I like to focus on here is not ego lifting. It is so easy to run the weight up on these and then start swinging the dumbbells about and getting a lot more trap work rather than delt work. So I'll pick a weight I can do for 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps and then I'll drop the weight and do 1 set of 8 to 10 reps. I do this because I want to get a bit more volume out of this exercise, but I also start to slip below 6 reps after 2 sets, so lowering the weight helps me get the most out of my final set. Next up, we're going back to chest and we're doing some cable flies for the middle and lower chest. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm doing cable flies and not a chest pressing movement to target the chest, but honestly, after looking at the data, flies and bench aren't too far away from one another when it comes to middle and lower chest activation, and I find flies more fun, so they're what I've been doing as of late. But I do swap them in and out whenever I need to change up my workout plan a bit. I do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps again of this before going into some tricep work. For triceps, I've recently been doing skull crushers again, and I have no idea why I ever stopped. They're such a good exercise for the long head of the tricep, as they're done over the head, which usually causes greater hypertrophy or muscle growth compared to more neutral arm tricep exercises. I do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these, and then I will go into my last exercise of the day, which is abs. Now, one of the most irritating things I see online is people sharing those insane 15-minute ab routines and telling people that's how you get a 6-pack. Spoiler alert, it's not. Abs are mainly a product of genetics and body fat percentage. Yes, training them can lead to them being more visible when at higher body fat levels, but ultimately they aren't going to pop if you hold more fat in that area. So the only 2 ab exercises I do is one for my upper abs and one for my lower abs, both of which I can do weighted and progress on over time. For my upper abs, I do the hanging leg raises, and for my lower abs, I do decline crunches. I do both of these for 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps, and that is us done. I will see you guys back here tomorrow for my next lower body workout of the week. They say your eyes are the window into the soul, but everyone knows it's actually your glutes. So I want to make them as big as possible. The biggest mistake I made when I first started lifting was doing an insane amount of volume on my glute days and then wondering why they weren't growing. Little did poor Sarah know that those 6 glute exercises she was doing 4 sets each of were only making her exhausted and actually weren't doing anything for her glutes. This is actually the main reason why I've stripped back the volume on my workouts so much. Without getting too scientific with you guys, research has shown that it's likely there is a logarithmic relationship between training volume and muscle growth. Most of the gains you make within a certain workout comes from the first few sets you do. So as you do more than this, you may get more growth, but the amount of this growth is much smaller than it was within the first few sets. So essentially, after the first few sets, you are more than likely just getting more tired and aren't getting much out of your sets that you're doing. And I can say from doing this split over the past few months that I've definitely noticed a big difference in the amount that I've been able to overload on my workouts compared to before when I was doing more volume, which of course is huge for tracking your muscle growth. Recovery is something I think is ridiculously underrated when it comes to growing muscle, and doing less allows you to recover more, which is why for my glute workout I only do 6 total working sets. I also have recently changed my workout, so now I start with Romanian deadlifts instead of hip thrusts. I don't really have much reasoning behind this choice besides the fact that both the RDL and hip thrust are pretty much equal in isolating the hip extensors, or the glutes and hamstrings. And I was also getting a bit bored of starting with the hip thrust, to be honest. To get as much glute work out of an RDL as possible, you really want to make sure you're breaking the exercise from your hips and not just bending down into the movement. By this, I mean you want to push your hips back and space waist to start the movement and roll the bar down your legs until you reach around mid-shin or just below the knees and then thrust back up. When you push back, you really want to think about spreading your butt cheeks side to side and giving your booty hole some air. I'm sorry for that visual. Go as far down as you can while still feeling the tension in your glutes and then thrust your hips forward. Kind of think about it like doing a standing hip thrust. After doing 2 sets of those, we'll then go into the beloved hip thrust. Now, I like doing this exercise on the Smith machine for, you guessed it, extra stability. Often the hip thrust can end up being one of those movements that you stick too much weight on and end up ego lifting, but doing it on the Smith machine often helps to humble you and prevent you from doing that. If you struggle with your range of motion on the machine, I recommend setting up a small bumper plate beneath your feet that will elevate you slightly and help you get deeper into the movement. Just make sure that the plate still lets you align with armpit height on your back support so you don't end up having to hyperextend at the top of the movement. I do 2 sets of these before moving into the reverse lunge. Now, to feel this one in your glutes, you want to make sure you're starting the movement by hinging and sitting back into the hip of your working leg. This also tends to put your torso in that slight leaning forward position, which will also help to target the glutes and not your quads while doing this movement. I do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these before going into my hamstring exercise of the day. Your hamstrings are likely getting hit pretty much in every exercise we've already done today as a secondary muscle group, but I still like to give them a bit of direct loving because I do want to grow them at some point in my lifetime. I'll do 2 sets of, you guessed it, 6 to 8 reps on the seated leg curl, and that will be us done for the day. I will see you guys tomorrow for our next upper body workout of the week. If you want to be built like an hourglass, then you need to stop neglecting your back days, Pookie. Building muscle groups like your lats can give you the illusion of a smaller waist, and thus give you that V-taper look on your upper body. First up on the agenda today, we have pull-ups. I started putting these at the beginning of my back days because I want to get better at them, and as I've mentioned before, the exercise you start with is the exercise most of your energy is going to go into. If you can't get pull-ups yet, I would recommend swapping this out for negatives, so jumping up to the bar and lowering yourself down slowly, lat pull-downs, or even some assisted pull-ups on the machine or with bands. One of the biggest tips I can give you when doing this exercise is to think about pulling your elbows down and back into your back pockets and not just muscling yourself up into the movement. This will help a bit more with your lat engagement during the move and also will hopefully keep you more stable when going through the motion. I'll do 3 sets of honestly as many reps as possible for this, which recently looks something like 1 set of 6 and then 2 sets of 5 reps. But we're working on it, okay? Next up, we have the seated single arm cable pull down. This exercise is also mainly for the lats, but the fact that it is a unilateral exercise allows us to work on any muscle imbalances we have on the left and right side of our back. I also like to do these with a bench as a support over just doing them kneeling because the bench allows for a little bit extra stability during the movement, which I seem to love so much. I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps on this one before going into my last back exercise of the day, the Smith machine bent over row. A lot of people seem to hate on this exercise because it puts a lot of stress on the spine compared to other rowing exercises, but when done right, I think it's a pretty solid move for the back as a whole and gets more hate than necessary, especially when done on the Smith machine where it's less likely that other stabilizing muscles like your core, hamstrings, or glutes are going to take over in the movement. When rowing on this one, just make sure you're hitting the bar off your belly button and not your nips, and again, pulling those elbows into your back pockets. And then next up, of course, it wouldn't be back and biceps without some bicep work. So we're going going on to some preacher curls. The preacher curl is great because it allows you to angle your upper arm in a way that pulls more tension into the biceps in the stretched position. Preacher curls also lock your elbow in place, making it much harder to cheat and swing that weight up like you might do in a standing barbell or easy bar curl. I'll do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these before moving into some rear delt work. For rear delts, I'll just do a couple sets of these rear delt flies on the cable machine. If you want to target your delts on this one over your traps, make sure you're starting the movement by protracting your shoulders, which basically just means rolling them forward. This will make sure you're not retracting and involving your traps in the movement. I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps of these and then go into my beloved 2 ab exercises that I also did previously in the week. Usually I'll start with the one that I ended on last time, so today I started with decline crunches. I like doing this just because it makes sure equal energy is going into both the upper and lower abs over the week period, but it likely doesn't make much of a difference and it's all in my head, but I like to do it anyway. I'll do 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps for both of these and that is us done. I will see you guys tomorrow for my last lower body workout of the week. Alas, we have my favourite lower body day of the week, mainly because I'm lazy and it's a bit less volume. I like to do a little bit lower volume at this point in the week just to manage my fatigue a bit by this point and make sure I'm still getting the most out of my workout for growth. So starting us off today, we have a bit of gaslighting into doing adduction. I don't know why guys, but I went through a period of at least 3 months where I completely skipped this exercise. So now I'm here holding myself accountable and finally doing it like I said I would. I do 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps to start off here today before moving into some hamstring work. I like to hammer the old hamstrings on this lower body day, just because they always get put to the end of my workouts on my other days, and this gives them the opportunity to get a bit more energy directed directly at them. Again, we're doing the seated leg curl, and I'll do these for 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps here. Really making sure I give myself a good few minutes of rest between each set to get the most out of each set I'm doing. And after doing those, I'll then move into some quad work. And our first exercise on the agenda today is the leg press. To get the most quad emphasis out of this one, you want to make sure you're putting your feet as low on the platform as you can comfortably have them, and also go as deep as you comfortably can in order to get that stretch in the quads. I honestly would prefer to do these with my squat shoes to push the range of motion that little bit more, but I forgot them today, so we just have to work with what we've got, unfortunately for me. I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps on this before moving into my next quad exercise of the day, the leg extension. Just kidding, couldn't do them because the machine was literally taking the entire time I was at the gym. But you know what? I'm not going to freak out because that's just the reality of working out sometimes. And that is why we have beautiful alternative exercises like the sissy squat here to keep us going when we feel like throwing a temper tantrum. The sissy squat is a great exercise though for stretching out those quads, and also is a good exercise to help strengthen your knees. You essentially just want to push your knees forward, going as low as you comfortably can and coming back onto your toes, and then pushing back up and coming back to the flat-footed position you started with, using your quads to move your body weight throughout the entire movement. I think I just did 2 sets of as many reps as possible of these before moving into my final exercise of the day, the banded glute extension, or the banded back extension, but glute biased. I never know what to call these. Now, these are not for the faint-hearted, but they are so good at loading the glutes compared to the dumbbell glute extension. The main idea behind this one, as I said in one of my shorts that I posted on here, is that resistance bands create variable resistance, which basically means that the resistance increases as the band stretches, which means in the back extension that the load is heaviest when your back is fully extended at the top of the movement where your glutes, hamstrings and erectors are most engaged. No one laugh at the word erector. Or put less scientifically, it basically means that it loads your glutes in the position that they are most engaged in. To set this up, you essentially just want to loop the band under the legs at the front of the machine and stretch the band over your shoulder blades. This is absolutely diabolical, so I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps banded and then 1 set of body weight at the end for around 6 to 8 reps again. Just because I absolutely cannot do 3 sets of banded, my butt feels like it's about to implode, so body weight just has to do. And that is it for today. I will see you guys back here tomorrow for our final workout of the week. Well, hello there. Welcome back to watching me working out again for the final time. It's a sad moment, but good thing we're training shoulders big enough for you to cry on today. To start us off today, we're doing the overhead press. Wah wah, not optimal, wah wah. I know this isn't the most stable exercise in the world, but if I have to do the seated shoulder press one more time this week, I will cease to exist. So we're doing a standing today. I like to warm up first with the bar and then do a bit of dynamic stretching with a band before going into 2 working sets on this one. To make sure we're getting as much as possible out of this movement for the front delts, you're going to want to make sure you're really bracing your core throughout the movement and tucking your pelvis in to take the load off your lower back. Also make sure you're not ego lifting with this one because you're just going to end up muscling the weight up and not pushing it up from your front delts. I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps on this one before moving into our next shoulder exercise to target the side delts. And for this, of course, we have the side lateral raise again. This is another one you want to make sure you're not ego lifting on because it's super easy to get wrong and swing the weight up with your traps and not your delts, like I said before. Keep the movement slow and controlled to make sure you're staying within the right movement pattern, starting with your hands facing together at the start of the movement and then down when they reach the top. I do 2 sets of 6 to 8 and then 1 back off set of 8 to 10 reps on this one. And then to get a little bit more side delt action, I'll go into some upright rows. This exercise also targets the upper traps a bit, but I'm not going to hate on it for that. This exercise also gets a lot of shtick for causing some shoulder issues, but if you have healthy shoulder and elbow joints, then they should be completely fine for you if you get the form down right. I'll do 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps on these to finish off my shoulders and then go into back. Chin-ups, which are basically just pull-ups with the palms up grip, do have a bit more bicep emphasis than the pull-up, meaning that in theory you could probably get slightly more reps on these or find them slightly easier than the conventional pull-up. I do say in theory, because this exercise is just as bad for me as pull-ups are. I'll do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps on this one, again realistically getting around 6 reps and 5 reps for the remaining 2 sets. After warming up my biceps a bit with those, I'll then move into some direct bicep work with the preacher curls again. I'm a creature of habit when it comes to most of my arm exercises, and honestly I don't like training biceps. And this is the only bicep exercise I can half tolerate, so we're doing it again for 2 sets of 6 to 8 reps again. And finally, for today, we're doing a bit of triceps work, this time focusing on a unilateral exercise to keep our triceps looking even on both arms. I'll do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps on the single arm pushdowns, positioning the cable so that it crosses my body and follows a downward path. I'll also make sure my upper arm stays aligned with the direction of the cable's resistance throughout the movement to go through a more natural plane for the tricep and put more emphasis on the long head of the tricep. But that is all I have for you guys this week. I really hope you enjoyed the video and can take some inspiration from my workout routine to implement into your own workouts. I'll also be dropping my full routine on my website soon, so if you guys want to train with me, I will leave a link below when I pop that up. But I'll also make a post about it on my community feed when it is up, so keep an eye out for that. Until then, I will catch you guys in my next one.